There's someone on your team who isn't performing. You know it. They probably know it. Everyone else definitely knows it. And you keep avoiding the conversation. You rehearse it in your head, you draft the email, you schedule the meeting, then cancel it because you don't want to hurt them. You don't want to be that kind of boss. But avoiding the conversation is hurting them more and destroying your credibility with everyone else. This episode is about how to have the conversation you're avoiding. Here's what happens when you avoid difficult conversations. They don't improve because they don't have clear feedback. They might not even know that there's a problem, or they think it's not that serious. They stay stuck in patterns that are limiting their growth and damaging their career. Your high performers, they're watching. They're wondering why they have to carry the weight. They're frustrated that standards don't seem to matter. They're updating their resumes. Your credibility, every day you avoid the conversation, you signal mediocrity is acceptable here. Your team loses respect for your leadership. Your manager questions whether you can handle hard things. Your own peace of mind, you're losing sleep, rehearsing conversations you're not having. You're stressed about the impact on the team. You're carrying the weight of this unspoken issue everywhere you go. Avoiding the conversation isn't protecting anyone. It's making everything worse, and you know it. I'm Dr. 𝗂𝗵𝗿𝗀𝗀. I've coached technical professionals through conversations they've been avoiding for months, sometimes years. And here's what I need you to understand. Difficult conversations aren't mean, but avoiding them is. When you avoid giving someone clear feedback about their performance, you're robbing them of the chance to improve. You're letting them continue down a path that will hurt their career. You're making their eventual exit more painful and surprising because it's coming. Clarity is kindness. Avoiding hard conversations because you don't want to hurt someone's feelings, that's not compassion. That's conflict avoidance disguised as care. And the person who suffers most is the one who never got the honest feedback they needed. Now, let me show you how to have the conversation. Here's the framework that makes difficult conversations possible and productive. Get clear on the issue before the conversation. You can't have an effective, difficult conversation if you're not clear about what the problem actually is. Ask yourself 3 questions. What is the specific behavior or performance issue? Not, they have a bad attitude. That's too vague. They consistently miss deadlines without communicating deadlines in advance. Is specific. Not, they're not a team player. That's subjective. They don't respond to requests for input from another team member, which is delaying cross-functional projects. That's specific. Be so specific, you could point to examples with dates. What is the impact of this behavior? Not just on you, on the team, on the organization. When you miss deadlines without communicating, other team members can't plan their work, which builds delays across the project. Impact makes it real, not personal opinion, business impact. What specifically needs to change? Not be better. That's not actionable. I need you to communicate any delays at least 48 hours in advance so the team can adjust is actionable. If you can't answer these 3 questions specifically, you're not ready for that conversation. Step 2, frame it as care, not an attack. The way you frame the conversation determines whether they hear you or defend themselves. Here's how to frame it. I'm having this conversation with you because I care about your success. Not, I'm frustrated with you. Not, you're in trouble. I care about your success. And right now, there's something getting in the way of that. I want to help you address it. That's care. That's not soft. That's honest care. I'm committed to your growth. And part of that is being honest with you. This signals I'm not avoiding this because it's hard. I'm having this because I'm invested in you. I want you to succeed here. For that to happen, we need to talk about the specific issue. Framing it as care doesn't make it less direct. It makes it more likely they'll actually hear you. Step 3, use the SBI framework, situation, behavior, impact. This is a structure that keeps difficult conversations focused and productive. S, situation. Set the context. When and where did this happen? In last week's project review meeting, ... Over the past 3 sprints, ... This grounds the conversation in specifics, not generalizations. B, behavior. What did you observe? What specific actions or inactions? ... You didn't have the deliverable ready that you committed to. ... You've missed the agreed upon deadline without communicating in advance. Observable behavior, not interpretation, not assumption. I, impact. What was the effect of that behavior? ... which meant the team couldn't move forward with their part of the project, and now we're 2 weeks behind. Impact on the work, the team, and the business. Here's a full example. In last week's sprint review, you didn't have the analysis ready you'd committed to, which meant the team couldn't make the decision they needed to make, and we lost a week of progress. That's specific, that's factual, that's not an attack. And it's much harder to argue with that than you're not pulling your weight. Step 4, ask, don't assume. After you've laid out the situation, behavior, impact, here's what most leaders get wrong. They keep talking. Don't. Ask the question. Can you help me understand what happened? Not, why did you do that? Not, what were you thinking? Can you help me understand what happened? Invites explanation without defense. What got in the way of meeting this deadline? Maybe there's context you don't know. Maybe they're struggling with something you can help with. Maybe there's no good reason, but at least you ask. What do you think needs to change? Sometimes they already know. Sometimes they need to hear themselves say it. Asking doesn't mean you're not holding them accountable. It means you're treating them like an adult who has context and perspective. And it makes the conversation a dialogue, not a lecture. Step 5, be clear about what needs to change and by when. This is where most difficult conversations fail. You have the conversation, it feels hard, everyone's uncomfortable, then you end with, so let's just do better, okay? No, you need to be crystal clear about expectations. Here's what I need to see change, and list the specific change. I need you to communicate any delays within 48 hours in advance. I need you to complete deliverables by the agreed upon deadline or negotiate new extensions proactively. Not be more reliable, that's too vague. Here's the timeline, and provide the specific timeline. I need to see this improvement over the next 30 days. By the end of this sprint, I expect to see, and list the specific outcome. Not eventually or soon, specific timelines. Here's how we'll check in, and provide the specific cadence. We'll have weekly one-on-ones to discuss progression. I'll check in with you mid-sprint to see how it's going. Not, let me know if you need help. That's too passive. Here's what happens if this doesn't improve. Clear consequence. If I don't see this improvement within 30 days, we'll move to a formal performance improvement plan. If this pattern continues, it will impact your performance review, which could lead us parting ways. This isn't a threat. This is clarity. They deserve to know the stakes. Now, let me tell you the number one way leaders sabotage difficult conversations. They soften it into meaninglessness. Here's what it sounds like. Hey, so I just wanted to maybe check in about, I've noticed a few things that, it's not a big deal, but maybe we could think about if you have time, possibly improving, but, no pressure. Stop that. If the conversation needs to happen, it's important. Don't soften it so much that the person walks away thinking, well, that wasn't so bad. Everything's fine. There's a difference between being kind and caring about their success, framing it with compassion, and being soft, avoiding clarity because you're uncomfortable. Kind and direct is greater than soft and vague. You can be compassionate and clear. You can care about them and hold them accountable. In fact, that's exactly what good leadership looks like. Here's the reframe that changes everything. Difficult conversations aren't punishments. They're investments in someone's development. When you have a clear, honest conversation about performance, you're giving them information they need to grow. You're showing them you believe they can improve. You're treating them like a professional who can handle direct feedback. And sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is tell someone the truth about how they're showing up, so they can make a different choice. Think about it. Would you rather have a manager who tells you when something's not working, or a manager who lets you fail in silence, then surprises you with a bad performance review? Your team members want the same thing you do: honest feedback, clear expectations, a chance to improve. Difficult conversations aren't mean, they're respectful. Here's what happens when you finally have the conversation you've been avoiding. The person either improves or they don't. If they improve, you help them grow. That's a win. If they don't, you have clarity about the next steps. Also a win. Either way, you're not stuck in ambiguity anymore. Your high performers notice. They see you holding standards. They see you having hard conversations. They respect you more, not less. You stop losing sleep because you only carry weight of unspoken issues. You addressed it, it's out there, you can move forward. You build your leadership muscle. The first difficult conversation is hard. The second is easier. By the 10th, it's just a part of leadership. And here's the surprising part. Most of the time, the people thank you. Not immediately, maybe not in the moment, but later. Sometimes years later, they say, that conversation changed my career. Thank you for being honest with me. Because deep down, people know when they're not showing up well. And they're relieved when someone finally tells the truth with compassion. Here's what I want you to do this week. Identify difficult conversations you've been avoiding. Who is it? What's the specific issue? Write it down and be honest. Prepare using the framework. Be clear. Get clear. Specific behavior, clear impact, actionable change. Frame it as care. Write out your SBI. Prepare your ask question. Define clear expectations and timelines. Download the difficult conversation script template. The link is in the description. It walks you through every step of the fill in the blank script you can customize. Then schedule the conversation this week. Not when the time is right, not after the project ends, this week. The longer you wait, the harder it gets. And drop a comment. What makes difficult conversations hard for you? Fear of reaction, not knowing what to say, worried about being mean or being labeled as mean? Let's talk about what's really keeping you stuck. Leadership isn't about being liked. It's about being clear. And sometimes being clear means having conversations that are uncomfortable. Here's what you need to understand. Avoiding hard conversations doesn't make you kind. It makes you complicit in someone's continued struggle. Avoiding hard conversations doesn't protect your relationship. It erodes trust with everyone watching. Having difficult conversations with clarity and compassion, that's what good leaders do. Not because it's easy, because it's necessary. Because clarity is kindness and avoidance is cruelty. In the next episode, you're having the hard conversations, you're leading with clarity, you're building your team, and then you make a mistake. We're talking about how to recover from leadership mistakes without losing credibility and why your mistakes might be the most important leadership moments you have. Because you will make mistakes. The question is, how will you handle them? That's in our next episode. I'm 𝗂𝗵𝗿𝗀. This is the leadership gap nobody talks about. Have the conversation this week. Today, even. Clarity is kindness. Let's keep closing the gaps together.